let's just jump on this coaching carousel now.
Okay.
There's so many, there's reports coming out that Auburn and Lane Kiffin are close. Some from some blue check marks. There's, Lance Leopold to Nebraska, all this other stuff. What are you hearing? Because you're in the know as far as coaches go. What are you hearing?
Well,
especially Lane. I want to hear where Lane's going.
In cheap plug, because we may not get to all of them, but cheap plug, I did go to LandryFootball.com on the podcast section. It's free. I've got a special on that where I cover everybody, including some that may not be that we'll get into here. But so some of it's going to be repetitive for those that listen to it. But it's I think it's a good listen. Check it out. I guess let's just start at first. I think that Lance is definitely in the mix at Nebraska. I think there's a couple of other possibilities that they're looking into as well. I do believe the Auburn situation is probably most interest to this audience. I think Lane is definitely interested in Auburn. My guess is he'll take it. I think the only thing from Lane's point of view is, does he feel like he's going to have the full support where he can run his program, or is there going to be somebody that's, going to be, and I think that the right guy who they deem as the right guy, I think they would, but I think he's definitely interested. My sense is he'll take it if he's offered. There has nothing been officially offered. I know that's the media, but it doesn't mean that something's not imminent. We're close, okay, with 2 weeks left. There's a whole lot of support in the Auburn family for Cadillac. They can't, in my opinion, you can't hire an emotion. Cadillac is I know it's exciting. It was electric Saturday night. It just, he's not qualified for that job, and was just part of the Auburn family. Auburn's too good of a job to just do that. And I think people have come out, Dion is not a proven coach. I mean, at a big time level. You can't run if you're South Florida, I would consider saying, you know what, Dion, let's, because you know what, that's it. You can't have we'll see if a guy can coach, once we hire him type. I don't believe in all that stuff. I think that's too big of a job. Hugh Freeze has been mentioned. That relationship between John Cohen, the former athletic director at Mississippi State, and Hugh Freeze, the former coach at Ole Miss, is going to be interesting. That is let's just say that is a big, big hurdle that they gotta have some kumbaya moment and let bygones be bygones. I don't know where that is because neither one will talk on or off the record about that. But I can tell you where that relationship was a few years ago. That is that's just not, let's just say that's just not really good. So I don't know if that's the direction they have to go. That's the hurdle that would be in that. I mean, what else? I don't know what else. There's some others. We talked about Nebraska. I think Ryan Walters is probably the defense coordinator at Illinois, is probably going to get the Colorado job, but I think he's the favorite there. But that's kind of the latest on the major openings at this point.
Be interesting to see if Lane would be offered the Auburn job. The question I would have is, I know he has concerns at Ole Miss that there's not as much NIL money as the Tennessees of the world, the Floridas of the world. I mean, you could go on and on. There's probably 4 or 5 teams or 7 or 8 that have more NIL money than Ole Miss. But is there a significant boost, you think, in terms of the NIL money that would be at Auburn as compared to Ole Miss?
Yes, and well, it's not just NIL. Yes, and other advantages. Look, I'll put it to you this way. Lane feels like he's taken Ole Miss as far as I can go. Mm-hmm. That there is for people who are not the uninformed of how things work behind the scenes, they think Ole Miss is on a par with Auburn. They're not. They're on a par. They have better wins. It's amazing how people look at just who's winning as what's the better program. It's like people who said, well, the Tennessee program's awful. Look how many coaches they've had. No. The on the field product's been awful, but get the right guy and there's a difference. Auburn has won titles, competed for titles. They can do things that Ole Miss can't do in terms of staff creations, in terms of facilities. They're on a different level. Ole Miss, there's a tremendous frustration. And NIL is a part of it, Dave. It's one of a list that's pretty long about what Auburn can do that Ole Miss can't do. I mean, it's just the way it is. And you have to have a guy. There's one thing that Ole Miss is an advantage of. If you don't compete and win big, if you can win 8, 9, 10 games a year at Ole Miss, you can have that job forever. The pressure to win big at the highest level is not there. And I do think Ole Miss is good enough that when we go to a 12-team playoff with the right coach, and Lane would be that guy, I think they could get into the playoffs in a 12-team playoff because I think they could be the third or fourth best team in the SEC in a given year. But to win in the playoffs, to have a program that can win, it's not. You look at what he does at Ole Miss. He can't go get 5-star guys, and he is an elite recruiter. He went and got those type of guys at Tennessee. Now, some of them were the wrong type of character guys, but he can get them. At Ole Miss, he can't. The way he gets 5-stars, he goes get the transfer guys, and you can do that to a point, but that makes coaching tough because you got to put a lot of things and make that soup taste good, and it's difficult. It's difficult rather than transfer portal's here to stay, but I think it's clear that in the coaching profession, to the opinions that matter, Auburn would be the better job, provided you want to deal with the Auburn circumstances and the expectations. And look, it's a tough job. You got to play Georgia and Alabama every year.
Yeah.
I mean, so you're basically starting to where those two programs are better. And even if you reach that level, you probably are not going to be real happy, I mean, whereas if you do that, if you beat Mississippi State every year and you win 9 games a year, you got that job for as long as you want it. So, but what does Lane want? What is he's a high thinker, and so I think he would consider it. Let me just say this though, and they're not all on board at Auburn with Lane at this point. Meaning there's some people that are not as comfortable with it. I don't think it's like something that I think they're going to all be on board with whoever they're hired. I'm pretty confident, but I think it's like, lobbyists in Congress where they're going to have to, okay, I'm not for it, but I'll vote for it because I'll ask for a favor later. That's what is going on right now because they're not 100% on Lane. They're definitely not 100% on Hugh. So there's some got to come together and, well, I'll agree to that if you agree. That sort of stuff is going on right now. And I don't think Cadillac is a serious contender. Although I think he'll get an interview. I think Deion will get an interview, but he's not a serious contender. That's the way I see that job right now. And I don't know, obviously, where it's going to end up.
Fantastic input. You have to hit that like button, the thumbs up button, subscribe, and share. We're throwing heat today with information and some pretty good takes as well. Smoky Mountain Red, I want to get to your point. First, though, Amanda has something, and I remind you that Chris's appearance brought to you in part by Owl's Nest Barbecue. Fantastic barbecue supplies right there in Ottawa. Owl's Nest Barbecue. You'll absolutely love it. The rubs, the sauces, and also the Green Mountain grills that are phenomenal. Amanda?
There's been a lot of talk about Nick Saban, and I know we covered this, last week.
Mm-hmm.
But let's do the whole, like we said, if Josh Heupel leaves, who's going to go to Tennessee? Let's do if Coach Saban retires, who's Alabama looking at?
So you got to retire this year is what you're talking about. If he retires this year, because it timing's everything.
Right.
Amanda, I'm going to be honest with you. He's not going to retire this year. Right. And so it's tough to really go there, but let's just play the game. I think he'll have, here's what I do feel about the Alabama job if he would have. Nick Saban's not going to hire the next coach, but they will not hire somebody that Nick Saban doesn't put his stamp of approval on.
So that would Lane get that stamp of approval?
No,
I didn't think so.
No, really?
No. They do not like one. I mean, I can tell you. I mean, they put on that happy face type thing. You know, that is not the whole. I mean, and you know, that's what Lane does. He does what Lane does. He does the trolling with. Did you see the thing he did? And I'm not a Twitter follower, but somebody sent me this. He's got the dog now, the little dog in his.
Yeah.
And the little dog said, "Is Grandpa staying with us this weekend?" Did you see that?
I did.
Dave Mandan said, "Dave, did you see that?"
No, I'm missing the reference.
So Lane has this dog that he adopted, and he calls it Juice Kiffin. And typical Lane fashion, he has given Juice Kiffin a Twitter account. So he tweets Juice Kiffin. I mean, the dog is tweeting. It's Lane tweeting for the dog, obviously, yes, or whoever does the stuff. But Nick Saban is kind of refers to Lane. Refers to Nick Saban as his dad. So he's saying his grandpa, Nick Saban, staying with us this weekend when they come to Oxford. And he does all that stuff and the trolling and all that. But I don't no. That's a little bit of a I don't think there's hate, but there's a complete difference of how Lane handles things. Nick is not a big favor of a young guy, you know, new age thinking type stuff. So it to be the question. So I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't think everyone says Dabo. It's not Dabo. Doesn't have the support inside Alabama. I'll be honest with you. Really don't. There's not. That is a tough job. It is a unique job. It is replacing Nick Saban, and they're not going to have to worry about it unless there's some, God forbid, health issues for at least a couple of years, maybe more. But if it were to happen right now, there is no favorite. I can tell you there's just not. I mean, but things have a way of working out. You know, it's going to be all over the place. Everybody's going to have that. And, you know, see, people are saying that, you know, Lane would never take the Auburn job because he's waiting for the Alabama job. He ain't waiting for the Alabama job, because if he's waiting, just because, you know, Joe Fan wants Lane Kiffin, that ain't going to happen. I can tell you, I don't see that happen. So I don't know where they would go. I really don't. It would be something that would. There's just not that favorite type of a guy. I can tell you who a lot of them liked. That, you know, it's if he were to have success and that he's got a lot of support, was Mario Cristobal. But Mario's struggling to try to get that program off the ground at Miami. And I don't think it would not be anywhere near the favorite. And I just don't think there would be. I think it'd be real interesting to see.
You have to hit that like, subscribe, and share button. We greatly appreciate that. It helps the show. And check out our YouTube page for exclusive interviews with Jacob Warren and Cooper Mays, current Tennessee football players, who gave us some great insight on whether or not they were running up the score and all that other good stuff. So, Chris, Smoky Mountain Red asked about the transfer portal concerning Texas A&M. How concerned would you be if you're Jimbo Fisher and the amount of players? Let's say I put the over under at 20.5 players. 20.5. Would you take the over or the under?
No, I'd take the under. That's an awful lot. I'd put the over under at 10 or 12.
Ooh, that's still a lot, though.
Yeah, but 20 is like, you know. Look, I think I would be real concerned. Obviously, I don't know the attitude of the players. I mean, we know I can tell you, it's a mess. It is a big time mess. I mean, I'm not breaking news on that, but I got to tell you, looking at the tape, they are horrendous. Let this sink in. Statistically, which doesn't tell you everything, but statistically and on film, they have a worse offense than Vanderbilt.
Ouch.
I mean, and I'm not. That's not one of those things that you just say, "Hey, they're cute, they're worse." No. They're worse than Vanderbilt right now. They are. Not a joke. Not kidding. Being serious. They really, really are bad. This is not an easy fix. It's not a quick fix, and I think there's a lot of decisions that need to be made. A lot of staff decisions, a lot of direction, and I think transfer portal the answers. I think it could be big. I think it could be big, which again is all the more reason where are you getting the right guys? Are they buying in? I don't know. On film, it doesn't look like it, and I just can't think it can't be really good inside that locker room and that feeling. And not only that, but you know how this stuff works. It's the family members and the hangers-on that are telling them, "Man, this is a mess." They're hearing all that negativity. You know, you'd be better off going here, there, and there are other schools that are reaching out to the high school coaches and the hangers-on. They still, that's the thing in this new age. You continue to remember when it used to be in my day when I was a recruiting coordinator, you never recruited a guy that committed to another school. Now they recruit you not only even if you've committed, they continue to recruit you. You go to another school and they still recruiting you. That was like highly unethical back then. Today, it's just that's what's done. So all of that is what they're going to have to face. And are they strong enough to be able to keep those guys from jumping ship? I don't know, but my guess is they've got a lot of work to do on that front to keep them.
Well, if you go into one of those acronym supplement stores, you probably don't know what you're getting. Make sure what you put in your body is the right ingredients, and that's Nutrition World. Go to nutritionw.com. Nutritionw.com, voted one of the top e-commerce sites in the land. So you need to check them out and know that your supplements are exactly what they're supposed to be. Nutrition World, nutritionw.com. That is Nutrition World. All right, Amanda.
So how much? So this is what I think is going to happen. This is just my opinion. That Texas A&M is going to do one of those like, hey, NCAA, maybe Jimbo did something bad, and come take a look. And then the buyout goes away, basically, and then they can get rid of him. How close do you think it is for them to get rid of Jimbo Fisher at A&M?
I think it depends on how well they've covered their tracks. You know what happens if that's done. There's going to be a lawsuit.
Yeah.
And when you start doing that, you know, at some point you're looking at it, it's going to make it, that's going to be a lot more negative. Because as you try to move, I mean, that's been said out there. And I think that obviously folks in Tennessee think about that a lot because that's exactly what they did. But they had a guy that, let's just call it, wasn't the sharpest tool in the shed, that didn't cover his tracks, that, you know, it was pretty easy. I don't think that's the case. Of course, I didn't think that Jeremy would have, you know, the wife, you know, involved either. There's a lot of things I was shocked on, but I don't think that's happening at A&M. I think they've kind of this is all kind of handled. So I don't think they'd get away with that personally. And if they did, you got to be careful, because then if you do that, if it's not a clean thing, it's negativity on top of negativity for the program. And then you're still going to be spending the money. You just be on it all of the lawyers. You'd be better off saying, you know, let's just take and come to an agreement by, you know, and the third thing is, here's my sense. There's no one that matters at A&M that is jump ship on Jimbo. They feel like
Are you talking
You
about it from the
and,
administration standpoint?
and the key boosters.
Okay.
That they're not just, it is, this is what's going on. It's, you got to fix this. We believe in you. You fix this. You've been given this. You fix it. Because I don't think there's an easy answer if they go out and want to hire somebody either. I mean, let's just say they did. I mean, they could go, that you can fix this. You have to fix it. Now, if he is resistant and says, go kick rocks because you can pay, then I think it becomes contentious. Then I think next year they're having to come up with the money to do it. And I think that if he doesn't want to do it this year, there'd be some people that would say, you know what, if he thinks this is how he's going to handle it and he doesn't want to make the changes, then, we really need to be thinking about raising the money. But I think what's going to happen is you got to fix this, Jimbo, because the maybe the fan base, the people, those are not the key people. The key people, the booster faction believes he can fix it, wants him to fix it. And look, you've kind of got us into this. We've paid you this. You got to fix it. If he doesn't do that, then I think there's then there's going to be some real problems going forward. But I don't think they're comfortable with moving on from him. And it's more than just the money buyout. Is where do they go? Who do they hire? What do they do? I think they feel like their best chance is you got to fix it. And here's the thing: if you're Jimbo, yeah, he could say go kick rocks, but his hit is so bad. I've said this before. If A&M was 7-5 or 8-4, he might be able to sell. Look, we had this happen, we're going to be fine next year. It's hit rock bottom, which may be the best thing for A&M. And if you're going to lose. It's not good now, but talk about taking your medicine. Jimbo, I think, has been humbled. It may not sound like it, but I think he knows that if he doesn't, yeah, he can walk away with a lot of money, but with nothing of a reputation coaching-wise intact if he doesn't fix this. And so I think he's going to make the substantive changes because everybody loves a redemption story. If he comes back and he wins 8 or 9 next year and then he gets – look at that. He made those changes. And there are issues. Look, Brian Kelly went through a similar situation at Notre Dame. Not as bad. He complete overhaul. And he turns things around at Notre Dame. And so I think that's where Jimbo is. I think he's been humbled enough to where he knows he's got to do it. Whereas opposed to if he's 7-5, 8-4, my way works. He doesn't sound like it, but I think he's going to make that decision.
Well,
we'll see.
Chris, I would add to that. He didn't leave Florida State in the best situation, and I felt
awful terms. Yeah.
I felt like he was ready to cruise a year or two before he did it, and that was reflected in his recruiting. So,
yes,
as far as his reputation, yeah, if he doesn't turn it around at A&M, he's doing the Les Miles at Kansas thing, and that's about the best job he's going to get.
Oh yeah, no, there's no question about it, and he's young, and the money matters. But look, he'll get a ton of money. But I think he feels like he's in a situation where his reputation's at stake. And if he makes the moves and he does it, and if it doesn't work and it doesn't work out, well, then, it's tough, but he still maybe has a chance to salvage his reputation. But if he's going to be hard-headed and say, my way is going to work, it's always going to work, and then I think he is damaging or he will further damage his reputation because – look, there's no question about it. The last year at Florida State in particular, I mean, he had that wasn't a search at A&M. That was Scott Woodard and Jimbo Fisher. That deal was locked up midseason, and as we say, he let go of the rope pretty quickly. I mean, he was out the door, and that's known, and that's why the Florida State folks hate him. And I always say, yeah, well, it's true, but you also didn't have the money to do the things that he wanted done for a few years. It doesn't. You don't quit on your team, though. That was bad. I completely understand him leaving Florida State. He should have, because that was, the A&M has got more money and got more resources. But all that money, if you don't know what you're doing and you don't do it right, you can see it just is a lot of empty promises, and he's got to fix that. And if he can't fix it, and he's stubborn, he's going to ruin. Yeah, he's going to ruin his reputation. You know, he won't be able to go back home to West Virginia and get that job. You know, I mean, he would have a hard time in a lot of things. You know, if he doesn't figure that out. You know, he's got to fix that. And I think they believe in him. Not maybe the fan base. You know, the fan base is going to always. But the key people, I think that's where it's headed.